Back in February 2014, a long 10 years ago, one of the most popular cameras ever was released, the trusty Sony a6000. A favourite for content creators and an amazing entry point into photography. If you've been to this channel before, you'll know that I've revisited this camera a lot of times over the years, and almost always I've recommended it as a budget camera, as a great entry point into photography and video. But as you can imagine, it does get more and more difficult to recommend in every passing year. So in 2024, should you be picking one up? Well, it is more and more difficult than it should be to pick up an a6000 new, because this camera is no longer in production. So if you go onto Amazon, for example, you'll see a lot of expensive prices for such an old camera. You'll see that it's coming up for $590, which is not a good price for this camera, so please don't buy it at this price. Instead, pretty much the only way now to get this camera at a good price is getting it used second-hand. And if you're waiting to shop around and wait for a deal, you can often pick up an a6000 used with a kit lens for as little as $250, which is much more like it. So okay, you can buy one at a decent price in 2024, but should you buy one now? Now, as I've said, I've covered this camera a lot over the years, so I'm not going to deep dive into too many of the specifications, as this has all been covered a lot of times before. Instead, I'm just going to look at the big plus points and negatives in 2024 and whether the a6000 still holds up. If you want to see any of those more in-depth reviews from previous years, you can check them out on the channel here. So one of the main reasons it's still been easy to recommend this camera over the last few years is its sensor. Sony has pretty much stuck with the same 24.2 megapixel sensor for all its similar APS-C cameras all the way up until 2023. Meaning, while yes, new cameras have much better features, the sensor technology hadn't really moved on, making the image from the a6000 still comparable to newer cameras if you knew what you were doing. However, in 2024 this has all changed. Sony APS-C cameras, starting with the a6700, which admittedly is a much more expensive camera at $1,500 with a lens, has a new 26 megapixel sensor which has much improved image quality. This sensor now seems to be the standard, as the new Sony ZV-E10 Mark II also uses this, and at $1,100 with a lens, this camera also uses that 26 megapixel sensor, and you can see that the prices and the models that the newer sensor are on are slowly getting cheaper. Admittedly, still very expensive, but generally these newer sensors start in the more expensive cameras and slowly make their way down into the cheaper models. So the a6000 sensor is only going to start feeling more out of date from now onwards. And also, to be honest, a lot of the features of the a6000 do feel a decade old. There's no touch to focus on the screen. In fact, you can't touch the screen to control the menus or anything. You have to use the controls and buttons on the back of the camera. And when it comes to video with the a6000, there are also quite a lot of limitations. There is no 4K video, wasn't really that big a thing all those years ago, and the quality settings max out at 1080p at 60 frames per second. So that means there's no high frame rate, 120 frames per second mode, for example. There are also a lot of newer things such as picture profiles, includes things like S-Log and Cine. These things are just not on these older cameras. Picture profiles, if you don't know, help you enhance your video quality and have more flexibility in post-production. So these really are nice to have features for video creators. The lack of them is a downside, though, to be honest, understandable from such an old cameras. Even some cheaper cameras 3 or so years ago didn't include these. So as I mentioned, the Sony a6000 uses that older sensor, which inherently isn't a bad thing. And as I said, up until the a6700, they were still using this older sensor. So the picture quality is in fact still good with this sensor, but it is worth bearing in mind that moving forward it will no longer be the current Sony APS-C sensor. And the picture quality is of course the most important thing when it comes to a camera. So in many regards, this is where the a6000 still shows a lot of quality. All the example photos and videos that you've seen throughout this video were taken exclusively using the a6000. And in fact, this whole video that you're watching here has also been recorded on this camera. Now, I am using a different lens from the kit lens. I'm using the Viltrox 23mm f1.4 lens rather than the kit lens, but it does show you the type of quality that you can expect from the a6000. So yes, the picture quality is still very good with the a6000, especially for photos. Pairing this camera with a better lens, such as the Viltrox that I mentioned, or the Sigma 18-50 f2.8, for example, means that you can get sharp photos that massively outperform alternatives from a similar era, or even modern smartphones. And talking of lenses, the range of lenses available on Sony APS-C cameras is huge now. From Sony's own lenses to third-party lenses, there is an option for all types of shooting. There are super sharp fixed focal length lenses such as the Sigma 16mm f1.4, all the way to massive zooms such as the Sony 70-350mm. There is a huge range of lenses to improve over that 16-50mm kit lens your a6000 would likely come with. By itself, this kit lens isn't a bad option, but of course you can get better results from your images with a better lens, such as that Sigma 18-50 that I just mentioned. This covers a similar zoom range to the kit lens, but is faster and has much improved low light performance. For full reviews of all these lenses that I've mentioned, check them out on my channel. And if you're enjoying this video, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. Every like and subscription helps me out a lot. Another plus point of the Sony a6000 is that it's lightweight and compact, weighing just 344 grams and measuring 120 by 67 by 45 millimeters. And when deciding what camera to buy, it can certainly feel like bigger is better, as in a way it makes you look more professional having a bigger camera. But don't underestimate the importance of having a lightweight and easy to carry camera, especially if you're going to be using it as a vlogging camera or for a travel camera, or just something that's easy to put in your pocket so that you'll use your camera more often. So taking into account that it's a good camera for photography and still has good video quality, which is definitely still good enough for YouTube videos, should you buy one in 2024? And the answer is, well, yes, depending on your circumstances. If you want a beginner-friendly camera with lots of great lenses, then it's still hard to go wrong with the Sony a6000. Sure, it doesn't have newer features such as 4K video and AI features and the type of things that you would expect from a brand new camera, but they're not going to cost you $250. The image quality is still good enough, and that is the most important thing. If you're on a very low budget, then the a6000 is still great. And if you already own one, I'd still recommend upgrading your lens first before picking up a new camera body. If you pick a Sony a6000 up used for $250, you'll have a great little camera on your hands.